If you like to watch Survivor, and when the show ends, you really want to talk about it with like-minded friends. It might be hard to find some, but don't you shed a tear. Check out the Purple Rock Podcast, and this is what you'll hear. John will make some dumb jokes, and he likes to yell and curse. And if they're not available, the backup hosts are so much worse. We'll spend the whole time being jerks and telling you you're wrong. So we found a nice person to sing you our theme song. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am John, joined by my A-team host, Andy. And Andy, I wasn't around last week, and so I was very disappointed that I didn't get to mention this very important thing. Watching last week's episode, did you happen to notice that they did some flashbacks?
I noticed it this week as well.
Yeah. Well, more importantly, last week's flashbacks. They featured people like Yule and Parvati and Amber's husband and Amber and, man, just wouldn't it be great if they all played Survivor again?
Yeah, I just don't know if that's feasible. So it's probably just not worth us waiting, but it would be amazing.
It's so nice when the show gets all nostalgic and it reminds us of, the great times we've had in the past, and just, it'd be so nice to relive those.
Yeah, and Eric and Natalie Bolton, too. Maybe they'll bring them back.
Oh, it would be almost as good as those things I mentioned. Just a cut below.
But, we wouldn't even have to wait for some hypothetical future season, for goodness, because I think we got it this week.
It wasn't that bad, for a season before, let's call it just an anniversary season. This seemed like it might be filler, and yet at the same time, I'm enjoying what we got. Like, I think we've had some good episodes. There's good storylines getting tossed around, despite what some people might say on the internet.
Yeah, I really liked this episode in particular. I thought it really handled the swap well, in that we got a pretty good sense of what the dynamics are in both tribes, or at least, what the storyline will be of those dynamics. We got a good sense of where several people within there, where they find themselves at this point, how they, see themselves going forward. Like, I think it really did a good job of establishing the new stakes within this, shaken status quo in ways that, other things haven't. And so I was happy with that. And I think it's going to give us a lot of different people to talk about this week, and a lot of things.
But be honest, did you miss seeing your boy Boston Rob?
Well, I did see him. He was,
in the
there at the end,
Statler and Waldorfing it.
Yeah, but I did not miss the Island of the Idols discussion, largely because who has time for that when the people at Applebee's need to be fed?
That I have always loved the over-the-top salesmanship thing, and Applebee's was it was great. I mean, they've done it with Outback Steakhouse before, but, would an Island of the Idols segment have given me this much joy? I don't know. I mean, I judge seasons of Survivor based on how much the players love chain restaurants and can profusely express that sentiment in confessionals.
Yeah, and obviously it's a bit of a joke, but that is why they didn't have time for the Idols. The Island of the Idols is, they had a sponsor that needed their airtime. But also, Island of the Idols so far's real contribution to the season has been just kind of entertainment sequences, comedy bits and such. And yeah, I mean, that was a great comedy bit in how, insane these people went for the food, and just the different reactions. And I know somebody in comments I was chatting with, I believe it's a fucking stick, was like, I always wonder if they just didn't give a good reaction the first time, and they were like, cut. No, we gotta do this better. Because it really was over the top. And I get they're starving people, anything, but Jason was acting like, oh my, I've never heard of these things. Oh my god, there's shrimp, there's chicken, what are these things? It was, Missy, of course, was iconic with her reaction, so it's like, yeah, I'm all for that stuff. I'm of the age now, or I've been watching this long enough that I really appreciate the goofy, dumb shit that comes as a result of this being a reality television show.
Did you guys know you can eat animals as food? And they serve them at restaurants?
Jeff! Oh, no, you don't! Oh, stop, you're crazy! It was, yeah, I mean, we bring up the Outback Steakhouse. Famously, Sandra loves it more than anything. No, these guys went for it in a way, like, bravo to them. And again, yes, they're starving people. Oh my God, you're gonna feed us. But no, they knew what their role was here, and I tip my hat to them for, hamming it up.
I have always said that I would be pretty terrible on Survivor, but the one thing I would excel at is over-the-top salesmanship of whatever product they were placing. Like, I would be like, I even tweeted, Jeff, I would throw my family into a volcano to get some Applebee's right now. Like, just go for it. You will get the airtime if you sell that Applebee's.
This is better than the $1 million. Oh my God, there's going to be, not blooming onions. I believe that's somebody else's. But yeah, I couldn't call out something on the Applebee's menu. Not a frequenter of that
I'll
business.
admit, it's been kind of a long time since I ate there. I mean, it was more appropriate dining experience at a certain stage of my life that I'm just no longer in.
Yeah, I think I went there once before Moana, just because we were taking Christopher to a movie and we didn't have time to go somewhere else, and it was right by the theater. And I think that's the ultimate dining experience for Applebee's.
The default option. That's where Applebee's makes its money.
Yeah, that or obviously in Fiji. So yeah, no, I just, I did not miss Island of the Idols because I got my hammy silly stuff, which has largely been what the Island of the Idols has been so far. It doesn't reach the heights of, Nora at, the island, but that's probably actually that maybe in there, it's a good thing. They knew that it had already peaked last week, so let's give it a breather so that it doesn't have to compare.
Yeah, and I mean, people would have been complaining if they had an Island of the Idols segment this week because it would have prevented us from seeing how some of these new groups interacted. Unlike when we actually got to see them bonding over some Applebee's, which was A+ television.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So, along with getting, a bunch of queso and such from Applebee's, they also voted somebody out last night.
Yeah, it was your boy Tom. Are you gonna pour out some Timmy Hortons for your homie?
Yeah, poor Tomer. He just wasn't able to get it done. That's it. We're at half-mast right here in Canada.
Oh, well.
Oh man, with the options this season, there's been a lot of half-mast. Obviously I'm not really disappointed at all. But, why do we think it was Tom? Was this the right call by the newly constructed Lero tribe?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear they had three options.
Yep.
All of them would have been acceptable. I know the overwhelming sentiment seemed to be for the love of God, why aren't you getting rid of Karishma? But I'll say this, this sort of tribe imbalance thing has happened before. And at a certain point, you don't have the physical strength on your tribe. You don't have the puzzle skill on your tribe. It doesn't really matter. So just keep the people around that you think you can work with, because you're probably going to keep losing anyway. So keeping Tom, does it marginally improve your chances at winning a challenge over Karishma? Yeah, probably, but only marginally. And you're still probably going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think of late in Survivor, certainly this season, and Karishma's continued participation in it underlines that. But I do think people are devaluing the benefits of not going to tribal council. I think people are being a little too, cavalier about their willingness to go to tribal council. Because some people can say, what does it matter? They can just lose 3 straight. They have 3 easy votes. But, weird things can happen when you go to tribal council. All it would take is one of those 3 people finding an idol. Sure. And then you're screwed. And you can say, well, no, we'd still have an advantage. If you're thinking collectively, but the person that went home will not be thinking that, right? Because that's the balance. And frankly, Chelsea might have thought that there's plenty of opportunities for me to go to future tribal councils, and then it didn't work out, right? But in this specific instance, I totally agree with their thinking for Tom. You had 3 people, 2 of whom are like, hey, screw them other fools, I'm with you guys, and, laying out reasons why, and doing it from the jump. And Tom was, being a little more taciturn and probably making it pretty clear that he still has loyalties to people that are not here. So, yeah, get rid of him and keep the 2 free agents. But I do think, people need to stop pretending like winning challenges at this phase has no value. We've seen, like I said, if you're the person that goes home in that tribal council because you didn't think it was a big deal to go to 1 extra, you're going to feel pretty stupid. Moreover, we've just seen times where, maybe it's not a pagonging after that, but the tribe that had numbers as a result of being at last fewer tribal councils in the pre-merge, they're the ones that get to call the shots post-merge. It's a tougher game to play if there are fewer pre-merge allies for you to go with. And so, I think there's value in taking out Karishma, but I have no problem with the logic they have, especially because despite what people were saying on the internet, I think the case was laid out in the episode by the participants in the show.
Well, and I want to be clear, I'm saying the keeping Tom around over Karishma for challenge prowess isn't going to move the needle very much, because if you look at those 2 tribes side by side, your chances are already super slim anyway. It's not that I'm saying don't worry about the challenges. It's that I'm saying be realistic about your chances in the challenges. I mean, maybe you get something that just happens to break your way, but it seems like for every strength that this tribe might have, the other tribe has it tenfold more.
I don't know. Dean was 1 shot away of winning them, the fabulous Applebee's, right? They were at the puzzle, at least, for the immunity challenge. And what's important is that, Karishma set them back quite a bit in both challenges, right? So, imagine if Dean gets to take as many shots as Tommy and Missy does. They might have won that one. So it's I think, without, because, the argument also is Tom secretly isn't that great at challenges either, but Karishma is really bad at all aspects. She can't just even pull her weight in some things. She can't, obviously do puzzle elements. There's other people who have, famously talked about being bad in challenges, even Sandra. Sandra has strengths, and there's even things where she's she's just middle of the pack. Karishma seems to be bad at all things. So I actually do think if they eliminated Karishma, they'd win a challenge. It might not be an immunity one, but they'd probably win a challenge in the next 3 days, or I guess the next 3 episodes, 9 days, whatever. Because that's how much of an albatross she is. But yeah, again, circling it back, I respect the logic of, these 2 people might, if not play with us, won't play with them, won't be numbers for the other side, whereas Tom could be, especially if something broke the wrong way in Pokai. So that's the 4-4 split. Right. So, I'm fine with them getting rid of Tom. I'm starting to get annoyed at the idea that, challenge wins don't matter. I hate the idea of the attentional mat thing. All of these things are fun theories as long as you're the person that didn't go home. And it's the easiest way to avoid going home in Survivor is to not be at tribal council. Ask Michelle about that.
Well, getting back to your earlier point, I agree with you that this wasn't exactly a surprise result. We had the cases laid out for any of those people going home earlier in the episode, and I think this one was pretty clear. It is interesting that a bunch of people seem to be complaining that or not just this vote, but several votes.
Every vote this season, they've been bitching that the editors are just throwing nothing again, giving us nothing and just surprising.
It makes me wonder, have you seen any of the other seasons of this show? Yeah. You realize that every episode they've shown, probably since the season or the series premiere, which was 20 years ago, they almost always give you 2 options, sometimes 3, going into tribal council. And do you think they're suddenly going to change that this far in? Like, yeah, they go with the suspense going into tribal council. It's just what they fucking do. It's the show you've been watching for years. How is this a surprise?
Yeah, like 98% of this episodes, like every once in a while they'll throw us an episode like, oh yeah, it's that one. And let's show you why. Because for one, we couldn't even pretend. And for 2, maybe it's like funny or something, like really entertaining to be like, oh man, this person's going home. Let's really underline it. But otherwise, that's like there's this attitude that's been in recent seasons. And like I've said, I've seen it every goddamn week this season. Even though like there's several people where it was clearly, hey, her, this or this. And they're still like, whoa, they didn't, way to go, editors. They'd rather obscure the result than give us what they need. And it's like, that's Survivor! That has always been Survivor going back to Borneo. You did not know that Gretchen Cody was going home until, Jeff read the final vote. That is what they do. And I don't buy that this is a recent editing change, nor do I buy that it is as obscured as people are making it out to be. I think what's happened is we all know that they create red herrings in the edit, right? It's like, oh, well, it's this person, but, they're trying to convince us that it's a red herring. And I think what's happened with some people is they just ignore what they think is the red herring. And then when it turns out to be that person, they're like, whoa, we didn't get any explanation for that. Because,
blindside.
Yeah. And they're like, they're just want to blindside the viewers. No, we literally had 2 people in this episode explain why it should be Tom. All we didn't see is the group at the end saying, yeah, okay, Tom.
Yeah, that logic applies. We're going to go with that plan.
Yeah, and guess what? That's always been the case. They never, ever show us the final deliberation. Even when it is painfully obvious. Even when it has to be this person. They will still, in confessionals, get that other person to say, well, what if it was this person? Because that's not new. That's not editors not knowing how to do their jobs. Like, everybody on the internet knows how to do their jobs better than them. It's not anything like that. That's just this show. And frankly, this format. Because I suspect other elimination type reality shows do this as well. I don't watch any of them, but I suspect they do. So I don't get these complaints, and moreover, I don't get it specifically for this season. We were shown why it should be Tom to the degree that I figured it was Tom. Last week, we were shown why it should be Chelsea. It was still surprising they ever got to Chelsea, but her name was brought up. And this week they showed that scene again, in case you decided for whatever reason we're paying attention. We were shown why it could be Vince. With Molly, it was Molly or Nora. And even if you believed it was Nora, it actually was Molly. And yeah, we were shown why it should be Ronnie in the first episode, and people were complaining about that. And so they just weren't believing when Elaine and Tom were talking about we should want to get rid of Ronnie. And then when Elizabeth and I believe Missy were talking, it's like, well, they want it to be Ronnie. Apparently, no, none of those scenes happened because you didn't believe that's what the result was going to be, so you ignored it. And it's just happening all the time, and I want to put an end to it because, for one, the show generally does give us something. They just don't give you the full decision-making apparatus because, yes, they want the final minutes of the episode to be a surprise because that is the classic storytelling technique of the show.
Yeah, the Survivor Reddit account was complaining about this. And so, if I ever was going to take the opposing side to the argument you just laid out, nope, because not going to be on the side of Survivor Reddit. So, fuck y'all. Yeah, it's just mind-numbing. You've seen the show. You know what's going to happen. They don't explicitly spell out all the steps that get to a boot. Usually they'll give you the justifications for A or B. And we got it. Specifically, the interesting thing that we haven't really touched on yet is that we got it from Janet. And I don't know, I don't think we had planned to talk about Janet, but just a quick aside here, Janet calling shots, man, it's amazing.
No, she's one of my favorites, and yeah, a lot of it's because of how she's defying the archetype. And yeah, we talked about this in the premiere. A reason why she's able to defy the archetype is because she refused to let herself be defined by it from the jump. She was like, "No, that ain't gonna be me. I'm going to take charge," and it's worked. And I fucking love it. She is amazing.
I can't believe it's happening, and I'm loving that it is. I mean, she's just. No one's, like, when they're talking about, we're gonna keep the tribe strong, whatever, doesn't even come up to Janet. Like, she's a good swimmer, she's, like, making social connections, even though these people aren't the same age as her, which, we'll get to Karishma in a second, but that's not always the case when people aren't the same age as you, or whatever other, difference you might want to identify. Yeah, she's good, man. I'm impressed. I was not expecting this.
Yeah, no, easily one of my favorite characters in the show. And yeah, it wasn't lost on me that, she presented that case to us as viewers and to them. And it was, frankly, I think before Janet started talking, it wasn't Tom. And then people were like, that's a good idea, Janet. You're making a good point. And then, what we don't see is them coming together at the final. Like, okay, Tom. Yeah, we rarely ever see that. Every once in a while they'll show it to us because it might be more interesting or because there's really no other potential variables to throw at us. But it's not a new thing. It's not a failure of the show. If you don't like it, it's because, and I've posited this before, I don't think you like Survivor anymore. You are complaining about the show being the show. It's not a new thing. It's not a failing. It is what they've always done. And if you don't like it, that's because you probably stopped liking Survivor a while ago and you didn't realize it.
Well, let's move on to the person who could have been the boot this episode, Karishma. We got some pretty deep character moments here from her. Man, if you were the husband or the family, those scenes had to be a little awkward to watch, right?
I'm imagining, but, good.
At the same time, like, she called her husband a roommate, and I'm assuming he probably has noticed such a thing as well. He lives with her. So it might not be news, but at the same time, having your shit aired on national TV is a little surprising.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be tough. I would hope that, based on her experience and different things, that this is not his first time learning of this. Like, maybe they've had these discussions since she got back and all of that. I would also hope that, while it'd be embarrassing to see that, seeing how she's, it is actually affecting her, the emotion that she's laying bare, maybe it would be, a welcome wake-up call. I like the scenes. I liked what we got of Karishma this week. I certainly complained about her last week and that I want her off my show. And I'll say this, I stand by those complaints just as I stand by now saying that I'm interested in it. It doesn't have to be a forever opinion. Last week it was, she was repeating the same shtick for like 2 weeks in a row about how, woe is me. And I'm like, I don't want to see that in Survivor. But this stuff, yeah, okay. I'm interested in it.
Yeah, and I think this sort of proves something that we've said many times, or at least I've said many times. Like, your success in this game, it matters a lot, like, who you're with. I mean, you could actually be a good Survivor player, but if you're around people that are just nothing like you and have no interest in working with you or hearing you or anything like that, sorry, it's gonna be a fucking uphill slog, and you might just be an early boot. Despite your best efforts. And even if you are a very socially talented person, it still might not go well for you. But Karishma, all the woe is me in the past 2 episodes, like, it seemed like she found a crowd that she felt more comfortable with and was opening up to, and it's maybe they're more accepting of her than the other group was.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually what I found most interesting, because I'm not sure that's the case. Right. I'm not sure that this group was actually more interested or more receptive. Like, maybe Janet and Kelly and even Jack or whatever, those are the people we mostly saw talking to her, are a little more, empathic, more skilled about that. I think what it just is that a lot of Karishma's early discomforts in the game, she's gotten past to a certain degree, you know. She's now been there for a few weeks or a couple weeks. So just the idea of being outside in her underwear was just something she previously described as being a difficult thing. Being around people she doesn't know and away from your life and cameras everywhere. Like, I think she's probably pushed past a lot of that. It's starting to just become something she's used to. But while she was with the former Laro people, she had already built up all of this in her mind. Again, it might not be in her mind. I don't know. But like that these were, you know, her tormentors. These were the reasons why she was uncomfortable. This was that environment. And she was ready for something new and in a place, you know, herself where she'd be more welcoming and more open. Because, yeah, it's like, it seemed to be kind of instantaneous in a way that it's like it's hard to ascribe that, you know, to the particular skill of these people and that they were more welcoming, especially because what we know is these people weren't welcoming at all. They were all like, these people are fodder. You know, like, in the way that she was constantly assuming Laro was treating her, that's what Bokai really was. It was like, I mean, it could be any of them. I don't care. Like, it's nice that you're coming to me. I don't need you. Right? But like, I think she was just ready for that and just the change of scenery, well, not change of scenery, but change of people, just made her feel like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for, and probably for the past 6 days, because she didn't know when a swap was coming, she was planning on exacting her revenge against the people who so callously, you know, watched her bleed out or whatever. So it was just fascinating to me. It's like, are they really nicer? And again, you know, my girl's Janet's there, so maybe. Or is it just that, you know, you decided you hadn't liked that group of people and you were waiting for a new group to emerge?
Yeah, you went way more deeply psychoanalytical than I expected. But, I mean, I think the easier, conclusion you could draw is that these people were just like, yeah, sure, go ahead, complain to us. We're cool. We like knowing that you don't have connection to this other side. That does bolster your case. So yap away, you know, give us some details where, you know, maybe they genuinely liked her. Maybe they were really interested in her story. Or maybe they're just like, we're just going to sit here and not be rude and let you talk. Who knows? I mean, there's 1,000 things that could have been going on right there. But I think at the very least, Karishma felt more comfortable. Or it could have just been that she was like, you know what? Screw it. I realize I'm a liability. I could be gone at any moment. I'm just going to be me and lay it all out there and screw it. If the actual me gets voted out, then oh well, shrug.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I liked from Karishma is she was fine. She had abandoned her I will pity my way through to victory strategy, and you know, tried to do something proactive. Obviously, that proactive was embracing her negativity and throwing people under the bus. But like, I have no problem with that. Throw them all under the bus. That's fine. Like, do something to save yourself. She should have been throwing people all under the bus when Vince was like, do something, pick somebody, and she was like, but they hate me. So yeah, not being that, yeah, I'll turn my opinion around on you. It's really easy for me to do so because I'm not invested in them as human beings.
Yes, we have made it very explicit that the only aspect of these people that we see is what is shown on television. And we learned and have been reminded several times over the course of podcasting and watching this show, like, you don't really know these people. You're only seeing a very limited side of them. So we don't tend to jump to conclusions or assumptions about who they are as people. We tend to just strictly focus on what we see on the TV.
Yeah, and I do want to like really dig into that just a bit, and I think we talk about it every other season or whatever because people might be hearing us. But I think it's like important for people to know when we are assessing these people, you know, criticizing, praising, whatever. We're thinking of them as characters on a television show. We are not really, even despite like, you know, some psychoanalysis or whatever I just did, but we're not really making judgments on who they are as people. Now, that might sound callous, like, well, they're not characters, they're real people. Sure, of course they're real people, but we don't know what people they are. We have no idea. What we see is what a group of producers and editors decided to make of them within like a 13 hours of a 39-day experience. So, you know, that which we are judging is what we are shown, and it's very much an artificial thing. So to make these presumptions based on their humanity is unfair to them. And it's unfair to the people who, we criticize here or there. It's unfair to the people maybe even we praise. And so that's where our division comes from. It's not that we don't recognize that they're just people, but if we, had to preface everything we said about that, we could never talk about this. And thus, this show of what little value it presents, and I mean our podcast, would have none, So, and we've more than once made that clear to people on the show. People who reach out to us because they listen. And I don't say that as a brag. I'm saying people who go on the show probably listen to 10 different podcasts because they're excited that
they want to hear their name.
Yeah. And I'm not even criticizing for that. I sure as hell would do it. I mean, I've searched our comments on podcasts and things. It's such a natural thing. But yeah, we tell it to them early. It's we're just judging the character on the TV because we don't know you. And that's good and bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I've complained about how wildly boring Adam was on Survivor. He might be a lovely human being. I have no idea. I'm not going to make any judgments on that. But I can tell you that when I watch him on my TV, I'm really bored and can't stand to see him. I really hope he doesn't play Survivor again.
I couldn't imagine that ever happening. What happens a lot is people will sometimes, come back at us. And again, for one, never, worry about challenging us. Do it. It's one of our favorite things because we're weird. But how could you be so mean about, this person? What's interesting is a lot of that, they only care about the humanity of the people we criticize who seem sympathetic, right? They'll be like, why are you picking on Karishma? But nobody's ever hey, don't you think it hurts Dan's feelings when you talk about him being a handsy creep? It was not fair. We only saw, highly edited a few minutes of it. It's no, it's not fair. I don't know Dan. I don't know Karishma. I don't know anybody on this show. And some of the most beloved characters in the history of Survivor, there might be some surprising stuff to hear about them if you've heard, right? And frankly, even just a really good, quick example is, one of my favorite Survivor players did one of the most despicable things that I've ever seen on Survivor. Yeah. And, if you would have told me in the season started somebody was going to do it, I never would have guessed it was that guy. And that just underlines, we don't know them. We don't know them. So they are just, so the only way I feel it fair to speak of them is at that level of remove that, the person presented to me via the television, via Survivor, that's who I'm talking about, not the actual person.
But speaking of how little we know of these people, let's talk about the other potential target this week, Dean, because apparently this information was out there, and if we were the sort of dedicated podcasters that maybe we should be, we would have known. Dean is a former D1 basketball player. He's also a handsome 20-something guy. Are you guessing where I'm going with this? Does this ring any sort of bells?
I have no idea where you're going with this.
I'm calling him the new Aris because that's what he is. He's he doesn't offer you a whole lot. He's a handsome guy, basketball player, and not much else. He seems fine,
he's fine.
Which is all most people said about Aris.
Yeah, early in the season, he was getting the joke about, being purpled. If I would talk about that, it's more about joking how quick people are to complain about people missing the edit. Yep. Although, frankly, that's so when it's a Dean, right? But, he was fine, he did, one thing that is helpful if you're a personality type that isn't otherwise going to be really interesting is being a bit of a doofus. That gives us stuff. And his Detective Dean was a bit of that, but it's I don't dislike him. I don't really like him. He's not, I wouldn't say he's full on boring, they're actively boring.
Right.
He's just, he's fine. Yeah. So I think Aris is a good comparison.
Yeah.
Aris is fine. And again, separating people where that I came to learn off Survivor, by a podcast and all that, Aris could actually be funny and interesting. But on the TV, he was he's fine.
Yeah. He doesn't really move the needle, but you did mention his Detective Dean thing. Interesting strategy, by the way. You're just on the other side of a vote, and you're I know it'll get me back in their good graces. I will grill the shit out of all of them and say, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? Then they'll be my friend again and they'll just welcome me back with open arms to their alliance.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. Yeah, sure, you should probably investigate how you were left in the dark, but yeah, the confrontation way, probably not the most successful technique, when people are already predisposed to be like, man, fuck that guy. Maybe some tact, but, again, I don't know if he has that. Other thing that people were talking about with Dean, hey, he and Kelly have a mutual acquaintance. How could the show miss that? I mean, do you care?
Yeah, not really. I mean, how much does it mean that you have some tangential connection to like, is sort of mutual friendship going on there? Like, it's not much. Like,
it's nothing. It is nothing. Like, it's an interesting little tidbit. Like, hey, what a small world. Right. Although sometimes that, when it's happened in the past, as a result of Survivor dipping in a very small casting pool. I don't know if that's the case this time. It's like, oh, hey, that's two people we don't know. What are the odds? But like, this is like an unfair advantage. No, it's not.
No, I mean, it's better than nothing, but not much better than nothing. Like,
on the scale of things
I'm never going to risk my game for someone that knows someone that I know. Like, it's, like, it maybe helps a little bit, but not a lot. Like, I don't care that much if you know someone I know.
I don't know if it is, like, a bigger bonding technique than, hey, you and I listen to the same podcast. Like, it's right around there. It's something to talk about, right? It's like, oh, hey, you and I know something together that makes you a little more real and human to me, and we can chat about it. But yeah, it is not like, oh, now we're gonna run this game and watch out, everybody. I could never vote out my mutual friend alliance here. It's nothing. It is nothing. And they're like, oh, well, how does Survivor not know that? Because who cares is why they don't know that. Even if they did, even if like they're doing this deep research and they notice, Facebook connections with their like red string on the corkboard, the proper response after finding that out would be, I don't give a shit. I wanted these people on the show. They're on. Like that, they both know the same person means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I listened to the same podcast as someone else, it's actually a little scarier. Like, especially if I was playing and someone's like, I like the Purple Rock podcast, I'd be like, oh, fuck, I'm doomed. Like, that would be me assuming that someone is telling me this because they know who I am, and I'm like, oh, that's my time here is done. These people are going to drag the shit out of me.
You just be like, that's not me. I mean, there's 100 million guys named John. John isn't even my real name. It was an alias I made up.
You think I would reveal my real name on a podcast? You're insane.
It took several episodes. But actually, more like getting at, like, several people in the past have bonded over the fact that they listen to a Survivor podcast. It's Rob's. It's always Rob's.
It is.
Yeah, like that, I think, has given more meaningful connections for people because of the other things, like it signals, oh, we're the same level superfan. Oh, you can understand strategy, yada, yada. Then, yeah, like, oh, my ex-girlfriend. Like, frankly, like, Emma pointed this out. That might not be a positive, right? Like, maybe this ex-girlfriend would be like, I dated this dumbass basketball player and all he could ever talk about was Kyrie Irving and yada yada. Like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing that Survivor needs to worry about. It's not a thing that fans need to worry about.
Yeah. We should move on to somebody else that maybe we have.
Another D1 basketball player.
Yes, Missy, who, there's highs and lows here. But I feel like I'm enjoying the wild ride. Like, she is seemingly pretty fucking aggressive, but it's not like Tony where it feels all frenetic. She just feels like, kind of like Amy in Vanuatu, where she's just like this very alpha female, and she's just calling the shots. And sometimes she fucks it up, because she just doesn't deliver the social connection the way she should, or the news that she needs to impart just comes out a little more harsh than it needs to. But I'm enjoying it. Like, I think it is fun to watch Missy negotiate playing Survivor.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Missy's presence on this show. And personally, I'm a bit of a fan of her fuck your feelings attitude.
Yes.
I don't believe it's a successful attitude, but I like it. It's, cause for one, it speaks to me, on a personal level, but also it is, it's a little different. It's, frankly, one we don't get out of let's say it, women very often.
That's where I was going to go, because I mentioned very early on in the season is that there's just like, there's something slightly different about each of these characters, and we've seen this kind of gameplay before. It's not often from women. And so, like, when she comes out here like this, it's like, I'm not going to judge her any more harshly than I would the men that do the exact same shit. Like, I mean, there's plenty of men who have done this exact same thing that she's doing. So, you know, I enjoyed some of them. I'm enjoying what Missy's bringing to the table. It's fun to watch. I don't know that it's necessarily going to work out super well for her, but I also think that it's not a guarantee that it's going badly. Like, Karishma didn't really sell Missy out, and I kind of wonder, like, after Missy dragged her at Tribal Council, maybe Karishma was cool with it. Maybe that was like a thing that she was like, you know what, it's fine. We're still buddies.
We were trying to blindside Chelsea. Yeah, like I posited that last week.
Who knows? It could be a lot of things, but I think that the edit seems to suggest that Missy is primed for a fall, and even Missy is like, wait a minute, am I a fucking villain? And so, A, yes, but B, if you've ever seen Heroes versus Villains, you want to be the fucking villain. Like, you don't want to be on the Heroes tribe. All those people kind of sucked. So read the exception.
And, Tom I liked. He wasn't there very long. I posted this on Twitter. Like, Missy is War Dog, but, not shitty at challenges, right? Like, he's the same deal. He was aggressive. He would just do moves and successfully at times, right? He was able to whip votes, even in short order, like she did with Chelsea. And he also didn't understand why this might hurt people's feelings and like the potential fallout from these actions. And she seems the same way. And frankly, I felt positively about the contributions War Dog made to the season while he was around. And I'm there with Missy as well.
Yeah. And I think, one of the people that we saw her interact this week was, or interact with this week was Elaine. And I don't feel like they have the tightest of bonds. It feels like Aaron is higher on Missy's rankings for alliances. But at the same time, like, she does seem to have this playful, fun relationship with Elaine. And I love that we got, like, a little just minor camp life scene of them wrestling. Like, what the fuck? How is Elaine's go-to move wrestling with people? This is the second episode where it's happened, and I love it. It's just so random and so cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I continue to love Elaine, even though we haven't gotten anywhere near what we got out of her in the first episode. And frankly, boot targets tend to get more attention. It's weird how that goes.
Yeah.
But even in there, and the way people were vibing off of it in the group, a bunch of strangers, well, not a bunch, but half-half, and frankly, people who know there's a real division and all that, they were goofing around. And I think that's what Elaine brings to the table, is that she just puts people at ease. People like her, like being around her. Yep. And even like a potential ice queen like Missy when it comes to moves is like, I'll mess around with you, Elaine.
Yep.
It continues to be fun. I do worry that it's eventually going to be why people vote her out, for all the reasons Ronnie laid out in the first episode.
Right. I mean, people can tell that it's charming and that people, like, at the very least are indulging it, and possibly even more likely they enjoy how she is. I mean, I remember the scene where she was freaking suplexing Chelsea all over the ocean. Like, Chelsea was laughing her ass off while it was happening. Like, she seemed to be really enjoying herself. And Lane does too. And I think that the amount that she's enjoying herself is infectious, and people are picking up on that. And she lightens the mood. People, when they're stuck for 24 hours a day doing very little on a beach with relative strangers, are probably going to enjoy someone lightening the mood. So, that eventually becomes a threat, because that charm can come back to bite her in the ass.
Yeah. I also like the glimpse that it gives us into Elaine's life, where it's clear, like, that she's at the party and things are getting a little dull. It's like, let's wrestle! Yep. Who's got it?
All right. Tag team, who's in my corner? Let's do this.
I hope she's cutting promos, the whole deal. I think the other thing of note that happened, and really quick, it's not a big discussion, but what did you think of the, like, Aaron Tommy alliance scene?
I feel like Aaron will probably just bond with anyone that has ever bench pressed. Like, that's the vibe I get from Aaron and all of the connections that he's made. Like, that just seems to be the defining trait that he looks for. It's why he's cool with Missy. He's like, okay, yeah, she looks like she's hit the bench a few times. This Tommy kid, yeah, he's done it. Former hockey player, yup. Dean, clearly. Like, his central alliances seem to revolve around his work, which is a gym owner. Like, you realize you're not recruiting clients out here, right? Like, this is for alliances to help you in this game. It just kind of followed a trend for him. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, what I do like is I think more, of the physical threats need to do this. Whether it'll actually pay off or not, I have my doubts. But, like, stop targeting each other. You guys are so vulnerable at a certain point in the game. You don't need to, just like women should get together at the beginning of the game when they're vulnerable. Yeah, you guys should get together and not let it happen. Ultimately, I mean, I think it's going to happen. I think Tommy will be voting him out, but it's worth a try. And I just think, like, in recent episodes, we've gotten enough from Aaron that it's like, he's got some strategy. To your point, I think it's a certain kind of strategy. I think he still, very much values strength.
Yep.
I don't know how well he's relating to people who don't compete on a physical level in the game or in life.
Right.
But, like, you do see him trying to do stuff. He's not just your average meathead, especially when you consider just how low he was after following the first episode. I've liked, the things that he's gone through. Yeah, as you say, he's clearly Missy's number one. I think I have no doubt about that. Partially because I think they're both, like, approaching Survivor in the same way of, we gotta do stuff, we gotta and screw anybody's feelings. It's all about what we can do and how we can further ourselves. I like that because it's an attitude that needs to, for that type, you need to do it. Stop targeting each other because people are gonna target you anyway. The other, person that can do well in physical elements of challenge isn't probably your biggest threat. It's everyone else.
How'd you like, Tommy out there just nailing the threes like he's Brian Scalabrine? Like, tearing it up in that challenge.
Well, it's good to see that he's not wasting his height, right? Like, that's just a goddamn shame, right? There's a bunch of us out there like Dean, D1 basketball player, really good. His listed height was 5'8". There's no way that's true. I just tell you right now, as somebody who has listed my height at a time, nobody who is 5'8" would say that they're 5'8". So yes, clearly, like, Tommy has played some ball, and God bless you for that because, why waste it? Right. All the rest of us wished we had it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I called him a Scalabrini because I don't actually remember if Scalabrini could shoot, but I do remember he was like a redhead. And that's
you also assumed because he was a white guy, but the answer was he could shoot some.
Not to lean into stereotypes, but yes. Also that.
All right. I think that covers the episode pretty much.
Let's get to some fucking ridiculousness.
Not, Applebee's level ridiculousness.
No, well, maybe. Don't put it past us.
All right, so it's time again where we answer advice because we are, like, so wise, so smart.
Mm-hmm. That's what people often say about us. I mean, I've checked our ats on Twitter, and it's mostly that.
Yeah, and, I know Rob and Sandra took a week off, but not for the Purple Rock podcast.
That's right.
No weeks off, except for all the weeks that we
constantly
individually take off.
Like entire summers.
All right, what's the first one?
All right, so my roommate's dog likes to cuddle too much. I like dogs, but sometimes I like my space. How do I politely tell it to fuck off and go away without feeling like a total piece of shit afterwards? Sincerely, Uncuddled in Oklahoma.
First off, there is no way. Dogs don't listen. They don't care. And if you play hard to get, I've actually found, I think dogs will try harder. And, I have a little bit of first-hand knowledge in that. My sister, my older sister, she lives with us in the house. And she's not really a dog person. Every evening, my dog hangs out in her room, in her bed. Now, part of that is, my wife and I are putting the kids to bed, so they're not available. But no, that's the person who's like, I don't care that you're not like me. You're going to like me. There's a neediness to dogs there. So in terms of, like, just telling them, it's not going to happen. But I might have another strategy. But what do you got?
Yeah, see, I think dogs, if they sense you're not a dog person, they're like, I'm going to make you a dog person. Like, it seems to be like their goal because they're just the best. They want to be loved and they want you to love them and to then it, like, not only do they want you to love them, they want to love you too. And they're like, I know you're a good person. I know you'll pet me. We're just going to get along great. And so to that end, fuck this guy. Like, how dare you? You should feel like a piece of shit afterwards, you piece of shit, because why would you want to not pet the dog? Pet the fucking dog. What is wrong with you?
Pet him!
Cuddle the dog. He just wants to cuddle.
You know how you avoid this situation? No roommates with dogs, you fucking cat person. Clearly you're a cat person, this whole, like, I like my space, I just want to be seen but not touched unless it's on my, routine. So yeah, sorry, this is your life, and this is the way it's gonna be until that dog dies. That is not, by the way, my strategy for, beating this, is not, ending the life of the dog. I mean, hopefully that'll happen.
Well, yeah,
not because I wish anything poorly on the dog, just basic, life expectancy rates, and where I assume, a lot of our listeners are in that, realm. But there is a way of keeping animals away from you, like this, what I tell you for gardening, if you have to deal with, like wild animals. Like, even though I live like 5 minutes away from downtown, apparently a family of deer every once in a while show up. Weird.
Yeah.
It's, coating yourself in urine, I think, is the thing. So what you need to do, and I'm not saying like really go for it. Dogs can smell things we can't.
Yeah.
But just like maybe a little bit of cat pee,
Little trickle?
a little here and there, maybe on your pants. So
It's cat pee. I thought this was like a self-provided urine.
Well, see, I think it has to do with predators and such, right? Like, I think a human pee, they'd be like, cool, I'm down.
Okay.
What you got for me? Right? I mean, I've seen my dog approach, human feces in such a way, because I live 5 minutes away from downtown, so sometimes there are people who, don't have access to washrooms like they should. And yeah, I washed that off of him. So yeah, just get like, I'm not saying you go out there and collect bear pee or whatever, just some cat pee. I'm sure they sell that on the internet. So that would be my other one, other than, get over it, you total piece of shit.
I mean, still though, how dare you? I bet that dog is lovely. You should send us pictures of that dog. I bet it's so fucking cute. But it's a
Once
very
we
good
see
dog.
it, and it's like just some like weird thing, like, oh man, fuck that dog.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna end up seeing a picture and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe not that one. You don't have to cut
Oh god, that's the Tyler of dogs. All right, I got the next
what a
one
harsh
here.
Burn. What a dog.
Now I'm the
deserve
piece
that.
of shit. How can I say that about a dog?
I know. What did it ever do to you? You're a piece of shit
Nothing.
too.
I guess the proof is there. All right, next question. Can you tell me how to use the power of persuasion to convince my cheap landlord to fix things in my apartment he should but won't? You're a cheap landlord.
I'm not a cheap. Well, okay. I was going to defend myself, but I mean, I guess I used to be a cheap landlord, no longer. But from that perspective, I feel like I've got at least a unique take on this. Like, have you ever considered tipping your landlord? Like, throw in a little something extra into your rent as a thank you for having a roof over your head? Like, or at least not complaining so much? Like, who needs a working heater anyway? Like, what the hell? As a Floridian, what even the fuck is a heater? So, I would say kill him with kindness. Slip an extra 50 into that rent payment this month. Maybe that just, pushes him in the right direction and causes him to give you some kindness. Did I just gender the landlord as a him? How dare I?
No, the question asker did.
Oh, thank God.
And frankly, like, cheap landlord who won't do their duties, come on. I think we know. Yeah, I've had to deal with situations like this back when I used to rent. And what I'll tell you was successful for me was avoiding confrontation and learning to live with it because I'm Canadian.
You're my ideal tenant.
Yeah, but so I don't have the advice of what you can do to overcome this. But what I would say that the experience of not getting it done is you need to document these things, and hopefully, you have email contact with said landlord so that you can have a paper trail, hopefully with photographic proof.
Yeah, I was going to say, throw some pictures in there.
Yeah, because what will happen if you don't? One day you're going to move away. And all the things that your landlord should have fixed while you were there, and thus would have been included in, the service you pay for as a renter, will suddenly show up in the things they're holding back from your damage deposit. So that thing, they're like, oh yeah, we'll fix it. Especially if ownership changes hands, which has happened to me, where the person, the manager of the apartment or whatever, we're like, oh yeah, we'll get to that one day, and then they sell to somebody new, and that person's like, hey, we didn't know this, and when you left, this, and this weren't working. It's like, that wasn't working this whole time. You guys were supposed to fix it. So if you can't get them to fix paper trail, the other thing that a paper trail does is suggest that there's some level of evidence, and then you can do all of the passive-aggressive email tricks, like as per our last, conversation, or just checking in, and blah, 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 and you have like a whole trail of, yes, I've been asking you about this for months now, and, make sure it's always in a thread. Don't send a new email. It's always a re. That's what I got.
Okay. I mean, and you did sort of hint at another solution, which is, try owning a place instead, you fucking cheap millennial.
Yeah, nobody can do that anymore, John.
Yeah, also try owning a place, and then your bills will get way fucking higher, and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay.
And then what you're suggesting here is own something so now you can have some empathy for your landlord and why you have no desire to fix many of these
exactly.
things. Like, I kicked it a few times and it's still working. That helps me push off that $10,000 bill.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, the window is a little drafty, but at the same time, I don't have money for a new window, so,
Yeah, my furnace one day will go, and at that point, I might need to sell a child. Like, I don't... Oh, no, it's like, every time when, there's like, is it working as well? It's like, it better! Hopefully we can move before it doesn't, because...
Then it's someone else's problem.
That's right.
That's
we bought a house when we knew that the furnace was old. Most people only care about the countertops anyway. Yeah, so there you go.
Right.
Great advice. We're killing it.
Man, we were just loaded with suggestions for that person, so you're welcome. All right, let's move on to the next question. Dear Purple Rock Pod, at last, we're being addressed. Dear Purple Rock Pod, watching Survivor has been a family tradition for decades, but recently my sister has chosen to break the sacred covenant of watching Survivor together to go hang out with her boyfriend instead. The horror. We really need your wisdom and guidance in these troubling times. What should we do? How do we bring our lost lamb back into the Survivor fold? And perhaps more importantly, what should be done about this interloping non-Survivor watcher who has caused this familial strife? Sincerely, Betrayed in Burlington.
Well, first off, as a Survivor fan, there is a way of dealing with somebody who does not fit into your group, and that is, of course, vote them off. And, blindside them, don't tell your sister, but you just gotta get the guy out the paint, because, wait, am I gendering now? No, boyfriend, they was there.
There you go.
Cause clearly they are ruining, a good thing, and, you guys will never advance as an alliance with him in the picture, so what you need to do is find a way to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I think in that same vein, if you follow sort of similar advice that you've given before about the passive-aggressive notes, in this case, I think what you need is a group chat that specifically excludes this boyfriend, and you all need to be taking part in it in the presence of said boyfriend, laughing, giggling, having a fun time to the point where the boyfriend is like, what the hell? Oh, no, it's about Survivor. You wouldn't understand. And this has to happen repeatedly until finally the boyfriend is like, okay, well, I need to know what is taking place here. There's clearly something I'm missing out on. Let's watch Survivor together. Problem fucking solved.
Yeah, you talk about all the great things that they've been missing. Talk about Nora. Talk about Applebee's. Talk about the brilliant things you recently heard on the Survivor podcast that clearly as a family you were probably all listening to together.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, I was talking about Rob's, don't worry.
Oh, okay, good.
Now instead of saying stupid things, I will say that, I can get where this is going at, because recently my 10-year-old asked if he could go trick-or-treating with his friends this year instead of the family.
How dare.
And at first it was a stab to the heart that I had to try and make sure that they weren't noticing. And so my solution to that, because, obviously people get older. The part of growing up and raising somebody and having a family is to provide them with the tools so they can go out there and assert their own independence. So I said no. I said no.
Yeah, good way.
I said...
So applying that same logic to this situation, tell a boyfriend, no, you don't get to not watch Survivor.
I said, there's a Halloween party that night in the community if you wanted to meet up with your friends then. So there is like, maybe you set aside things. Okay, you can be with your boyfriend some weeks, but like the merge is coming up this week, so that's a family time. I also said that the one last year of trick-or-treating as a family, and next year, if you want to with your friends, go ahead. And maybe that's it. You need one last one, and you should probably make that season 40. So that's just the thing. So okay,
why? Is there something special happening in season 40?
Just big numbers,
right?
That's true.
Like, anniversary, 20th anniversary. Seems like type of thing you'd want to watch together.
I'm sure they'll pull out all the stops. They'll probably have really big statues and a lot of idols. So those are different things to work with, just understanding. But I do like the idea of just constantly rubbing in the face of what they're missing. Because honestly, when I first read this question, I assumed that her sister was out there watching Survivor with someone else. But it sounds like, no, she's just missing Survivor. Well, come on.
How dare.
How dare.
All right, final question here. Dear Jerks, hey.
That's us.
Yeah. How can I tell Barb...
Maybe they thought somebody else was on this week.
Either way, I think it probably applies. How can I tell Barb her potato salad is too spicy? Up yours. Oh. Dr. Pandemonium and the Francois Truffaut experience.
Truffaut!
First of all, congratulations on that PhD.
Yes, well, I mean, he could be a medical doctor. We don't know. Okay, folks. The jig is up, because I'm calling bullshit on this one. This is a made-up question. This is not a true advice question, and we want true advice. We want to help people, but the reason why I know this is BS is that nobody named Barb has ever made potato salad that is too spicy. Barb does not make spicy things. Barb does not have a spicy life. Barb is the type that if anything even remotely spicy or interesting or a little racy is suggested, Barb is all, oh, you guys, or I don't know what you're talking about. So no, this never happened. This isn't a real thing.
See, I would say, just tell Barb to borrow Karen's recipe, and I'm sure it will be bland as hell. Because, similar vein, you can assume if it's Karen's, totally bland.
Nobody named Barb has ever done anything interesting is all I'm saying, and I'm hoping my Aunt Barb isn't listening.
Alright. Knocked it out of the park with those questions. Let's move on to some predictions, which, hey, speaking of knocking out of the park.
No, we're killing it!
So far, every person on the staff and every fucking commenter has gone 0 for season. Not a single boot prediction correct so far. Bravo, everybody. We're killing it.
Well, I'll say, collectively, the commenters haven't. One person did pick out Tom this week, although largely it was because they wanted to see the Canadian go home on a week that I was podcasting about.
Hey, I mean, I respect the troll factor.
Yeah, except that it's my reaction is man, I think we got everything we needed out of Tom. I do not think Tom had another level. I think what we got was what we got, and there was never going to be this is Tom's big shining moment. It was always just going to be, hey, both teams played hard out there, Gorder. We're really, really trying to do our best, and we're just trying to keep our head down and work hard, and good results will happen. Thanks.
You say that, but if he had gotten to the family visit, he was going to bring out Gretzky, and you would have been like, oh my god!
I would have been.
Yeah, see?
I still remember watching Gretzky's last game.
He might have brought out actual Tim Horton. That might have been his go-to.
That would have been pretty frightening given that the man has been dead for my entire life.
Hey, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
Dare you suggest anything other than Tim Horton is playing defense for St. Peter up at the pearly gates? Wait, I think he was a forward.
Oh shit, was he really a hockey player?
Yes! Of course he was a hockey player! Perfect. The only people in Canada who have ever mattered were either hockey players or named Trudeau!
Oh, so perfect. I really lean into the stereotypes up there. It would have been, was he a fur trapper before he was a hockey player?
Maybe in the off-season, it's hard to say.
Gotta keep the income coming in. Alright, so, let's do some predictions and miserably fail at this.
All right. In that note, I think I got it this week, though. No, I don't.
Nope.
So in the previews, we saw, Nora trying to make a move over on the new Vokai. And thus, I think Karishma escapes again, and the news gets back that Nora is up to something, and they just vote out Nora. And what I think, I don't know about the Nora part. I feel confident that Karishma's in for a while now. Just the way, the effort they've put in developing her story, I think she's going nowhere. Which I guess that could translate to by Karishma.
Right. I'm gonna go with Dean as the one they get rid of. I don't know why. I think I'm not doing well at picking anyway, so let's go with they decide, hey, we're losing challenge anyway. We feel like we can trust Karishma more. By Dean.
All right. On the other side, they're gearing up for a big 4-4 showdown, going to rocks and all that. And I think one thing that was made painfully clear is the former Leros are not about that rock life. They're not interested in that whatsoever, and it will all just be a matter of, the competition to throw other members under the bus. I think Aaron and Missy very much would be like, no, we'll vote out anybody, and I'd say their target would be Elaine. For the reasons we started getting into, and frankly, the reasons Aaron presented it in the very first episode, and I think we even saw a bit of him talking like, oh, Elaine's doing her thing, getting everybody to like her. And I think at this point, Missy will be like, yeah, she's a threat to me. And also, I think maybe she feels Elizabeth is a little closer to her. It was, instructive to note that, the move to get rid of first Dean and then, Chelsea, it was Missy coming to Elizabeth and, relying on Elizabeth to pass that on to Elaine. However, I say they make that move against Elaine, it gets back to the other side, and the other side uses that to get Elaine to vote out Missy. So my prediction is Missy.
That was my fucking prediction, almost to a T.
Then it ain't happening.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Elaine is going to be very open to moving to the other side because she's not going to go to rocks for these people. And I feel like Elizabeth, same thing. Like underrated, man. She does seem to have like a decent game going, and she is sort of like a fulcrum for various alliances, it seems. Like, people do talk to her. So, yeah, I think Missy and Elizabeth both are like, no, we're fine, we'll take out Missy.
Yeah, I don't think Missy wants to take out Missy, just as a note.
Oh, you don't think so?
You misspoke for a second. Actually, of the four, I actually think Elizabeth is the most likely to want to go to rocks, simply for the competitive aspect. Like, this is a woman who, 1 minute after learning how to make fire the first time, was like, yeah, I'll go after this guy who just did it in front of me in 30 seconds. I can do this. She's just like that level of competitor. So maybe, the juices will start flowing. It's like, no, we gotta win. But it won't matter because I don't think anybody else wants to do that. So
yeah, and also I feel like because she's so competitive, she wouldn't leave it up to chance. Like, she'd want to, take her fate into her own hands. Like, do something rather than leave it to fate.
All right, so yeah, that's what we got. If anybody else wants to take a stab of actually getting it right, I mean, that could be another approach. There'll be a place for you to do that on Tuesday or whatever. Next week, you and I are taking our kids trick-or-treating.
Oh, shit, that is next week. I should probably get a costume.
I mean, I don't know if you allow that or if you have to, censor a lot of the costumes. Do you censor, their experience in Halloween? Avert your eyes, it's a devil!
Devil? No, if it's like a Disney character. Why? The devil.
That's right. Somebody brutal things happen in that movie. So instead, the childless duo, Blackjack and Hooker, will be, podcasting.
You singularized Hooker there. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, I only think of one of them that way.
Anyway, Blackjack and Hookers, Matt and Emma will be here next week. All apologies for that. Yeah. In case you guys missed it, I haven't even mentioned, I was actually at the Rob Has a Podcast thing last week.
How was that?
Fun. And I got to meet several PRP people. Our audience was there, and thank you.
Ooh, let's talk about them. Who was the really annoying one? Wait, no, I know the answer. They told me it was you.
Well, I would have picked me anyway, so yeah, it works out that way. But yeah, there was 6 of, I don't fucking remember. I don't count. That's not my thing. Numbers? Come on.
Yeah, and I want to make clear to the lovely people that you met, this isn't because John didn't find you memorable. It's because John does not remember anything. It is his thing.
Anything. Yeah, we have receipts, but we won't share them. Slack code. Yeah, but it was a fun time, even though we got poured on in New York. I highly recommend it. Rob's live podcast. Go to it if you can.
All right. If you're listening on YouTube, thanks for doing so. Otherwise, I'm going to put some music on.